I believe there's 5 ways to play Overwatch. No matter what team comp you're running, no matter what strat you have, there's 5 ways you can play the game. No matter what combination of team comp you have, it's going to have a win condition of one of 5 things. So we have Brawl, then Dive, and then Spam. And this is where like people get this like rock, paper, scissors idea. Somewhere in the middle, right, of all this, we have like the hybrid. That's how everybody sees the game currently. While that's like technically true, what they're missing is what does that mean? Like, what is it that makes Brawl beat Dive? You know, like, it's not just Brawl beats Dive. There's a component of Brawl that gives it the advantage over the component that Dive has. And so, once you guys start looking at the components makeup of Brawl, and the makeup of Dive, and the makeup of Spam, then whenever a team runs a hybrid, it's a lot easier to see like how those things contribute to the hybrid comp. Remember, I said that there's 5, so you know, like this is 1, we have 2, and 3 in order of meta. Actually, that's not true. It would technically be like this. We'd have 1, and then we'd have 2 and 3. Beginning of the game, we had like Genji and like Beyblade.
Yeah.
None of those were actual real win conditions. Those were kind of just like power comps and meta comps, but not actual strategies. The first real strategy we had was Dive, and the Dive that we knew then actually is not today's Dive. It's different. So the Dive that we used to know is actually a different way to play the game altogether, and it's to play for a pick. It's a pick comp, right? The Dive you play today, when you play Winston and D.Va, you are not playing to get a kill. You never roll out with Winston, D.Va, Tracer Genji, or Tracer Echo, and you're like, hey, let's insta-kill somebody. That's not what you're thinking at all in today, and that's because we have BAP, we have divas who can peel really well, we have a lot of defensive CC, and we have Brig, and we have Moira. So Dive just doesn't exist. However, we do have pick comps, and that consists of like Ball, Echo, you know, Genji with like Orisa Pool, or like Winston Ball. So these like hard gauge one-shot comps. And you could say that those comps play for a pick. We also have Orisa Hog, Double Sniper, and those are pick comps. You're just looking to get a pick one way or another. Otherwise, you're kind of just spamming until then. And then the last way to play the game, pretty much...
Throw comp.
No, before throw comp actually, and where the throw comp's
Yeah?
inspiration. Yeah, it's throw comp's inspiration. Specifically in Goats meta, it was whenever you ran Winston Goats, and it was a specific way to play Winston Goats on Anubis defense. And you basically just had your Winston contest all of the chokes that the Goats team had to rotate through, and by the time the Goats team got to point, you had your Winston ult that you could use to disrupt Goats and then play for picks because you have the ultimate disadvantage. And then we had Sombra Goats, which you're just playing for EMP. Then we had like Baptiste Goats, where you're just playing for Bap ult. So the fourth way to play the game, for ult. Playing for an ultimate can be your win condition. Doing damage, taking space, or engaging on the enemy, like that doesn't matter whenever you have Sombra. All you're trying to do is wait and stall and contest until you have your EMP. You're playing specifically for an ult. Every action that you take is to play for an ult. So that's where throw comp got its inspiration. So, and then after we had the whole Goats era with Brawl being a hard meta after Dive, and then ult kind of originating as an off-brand of Goats, then we had Double Shield, which created spam. So those are the 5 ways to play the game currently. And I would say that all 3 of these ways to play the game all contribute like attributes. No matter what comp you have, whether it's spam, brawl, or dive, all have attributes from pick and ult. So if you have spam's going to get more ult building value than dive will playing for pick. Dive has more lethality than spam does, because spam's consistent low damage, whereas dive is inconsistent high damage. But either way, like, you're not playing for a pick whenever you play dive. You're playing to be able to have a high mobility comp that can contest areas, apply pressure at key times, and contest space really easily. Right? That's dive. So anytime I view a comp, right? There's 6 people in every team comp. So you have 1, 2, the 2 tanks, 3 and 4, the 2 DPS, and you have 5 and 6, the 2 supports. Each of these pairs obviously like work together within themselves, and then they create the overall like team comp. As a team comp, you'll have certain elements of those 5. No team should ever be 100%. If you were full spam, you would have, that's kind of a bad example, like full dive, right? you would have Moira engaging and throwing damage orbs and full committing for the kill, right? You wouldn't be having any defensive value. There'd be no balance. So whenever I like look at any team comp, I view everything in percentages, right? So let's say, with this comp of 6, you have 40% brawl, right? So like, let's say we have Ryan Zarya and we have Brig. Okay, cool. If we have Ana instead of Lucio, then all of a sudden this is like 70, But just because we have a Lucio, it has a lot more elements of like dive in there just for the mobility. So then, we just have Lucio. We don't have anybody else who has a gap closer in our brawl comp. So we have about 20% dive, right? So that's 60. But then we have Hanzo and Kree in our brawl comp. So we have like 40% spam with our Lucio, Brig, Ryan, Zarya. Or we'll even say Diva instead of Zarya, right? Because Diva's spam brawl as well. So that's like half spam, half brawl, right? So the comp is Ryan, Diva, Kree, Hanzo, and then Brig, Lucio. So you have Brawl, and then you have like kind of hybrid of Brawl and spam, and then Brawl, and then dive. Like it's a Brawl comp, but it's obviously a Brawl comp because you have the Ryan, Diva, and Brig, and Lucio. Like it's pretty easy to identify that that's a Brawl comp. It's important, so important. This is the big difference of like T3 and T2 teams and T2 and TAL players is their ability to identify this, to communicate the win conditions, and then play around them. This is why it's really good for you as players to scout 6 before you do anything in the first fight. Because whenever you take the first fight, it's committing to set up who has the advantage for the rest of the game. Right? If you lose the first fight, they get ult advantage, they can snowball that, and then they get the time advantage by the time you regain your ult economy, right? So the first fight matters more than any other fight. So because you scouted and were able to call 6, you will get the additional information. Instead of right here, we looked at this big circle. If you just have that big circle, all that you get is, oh, they're on Brawl. Whenever, they're actually just as much Brawl as they are spam, if you view it in the percentages, right? But just because you see Ryan, Diva, Brig, you're like, oh, they have to play Brawl. If your team comp is majority Brawl, then you walk up like it's a Brawl fight, you're going to lose every fight because they're winning the spam and like poke so heavily that by the time you get to the Brawl, that value that you have is like non-existent. Every team comp I view it kind of with these percentages, and then I guess I could consider the pick and ult value. So if they're running spam with a Kree and Hanzo versus spam with a Brig, sure, like Brig's going to do a little bit less damage, but all of a sudden they're playing more for ult and less for picks. So like those other two ways to play the game, kind of like intangibles of every team comp. Go back to Blizzard World, like whole point for actually showing you guys this. The team comp you are running, you have Echo, Ball, and you're communicating heavily that we need to be engaging and diving and committing to a kill during the rotation. But you have Orisa to set up the pull. She can pull, contribute 1 ability to the dive. Zen, who can discord a target that you can focus. So Zen can contribute 1 ability. Echo's full dive, Ball's full dive. That's like 15%, 20, 30%, like it's low. Whenever you have 6 and you only have a third of your team that's able to do something, that probably isn't your win condition, because that means you probably have more win condition of doing something else. What makes a good team comp is a team comp that is able to do their win condition, whatever the comp's supposed to do, consistently, and is able to do it more often than not, depending on what the other team comp is. In order for you guys to be able to pull off a hard engaged dive, you first have to have a diveable target, and you do, Zen, so you can dive Zen. And then second, you have to have nobody that can peel for Zen. You have Diva and Brig armor, but that's about it. So their comp gives you a chance to pick Zen. But even if you pick Zen and you hard commit with Ball and Echo, then they have their Brig stack armor on their Echo, and then Echo, Tracer, Diva, Winston dive you. Do you have enough defensive bunker value to defend against the majority of their comp win condition, which is dive? So like their win condition, they want to dive and get value by taking the high ground. But whenever you guys are committing so much and identifying your win condition as getting a pick beforehand, even if their Zen is dead and they take a 4v4 on high ground against you guys, what really do you have going for you whenever there's a monkey on you and you have Soldier as your best defense against him? And like your Zen has Discord on their Zen. My point with this is you have Echo, Ball, who are kind of diving. You have Soldier, Orisa, and Zen, who are playing for mostly spam. And you have Brig, who cannot do anything in this comp until they dive onto her. She just doesn't do anything. And so you guys have played high ground where you're not going to have enough damage to either rotate. You're not going to have enough dive potential and kill pressure to kill them during the rotate. And then you don't even have enough brawl force to defend against a full dive of them. Or if they force point, you're going to lose if they force point. So this comp is kind of like the worst comp you can run, because if they just switched Moira for Zen, all of a sudden there's nothing you guys can do to win this fight. Especially if their Tracer goes point and the rest of them dive you. And they throw a heal orb up there. And then anybody who you dive, Brig or Moira, Tracer, Echo, Diva, or Winston, you can't dive anybody. And you don't have enough dive value that your Ball and Echo now kind of become useless, because the only way that they can really get value by committing to a kill and diving a target is like removed from them, because your team doesn't have enough supporting value for that win condition. What you could do is have like Anazen. If you were playing to dive in like one of these two chokes, whether it's statue or like gate, or even if you let them like take high ground, then dove like once they're coming to pressure a point, you have like really good setup for Ana nade, especially if you're engaging with ball with the pool, even because then they can't DM the pool and the Ana nade. And if you had Sezco on Tracer or even Sombra, you could even have him sometimes on Genji, sometimes on like Widow. Just depends on where you want to put your focus. Somebody who can follow up on that engage. And then if you have the Ana and Zen with a Echo, then Ana, Zen can both hold and kind of play that space with the Orisa. Orisa helps them stay alive since there's nobody else on the team who's going to be able to peel for them and hold space with them. And then you have the rest of the team who is engaging with the all-in pick, dive value. But the three who aren't able to do that still support a lot and then make up for those weak spots.